Today I'm speaking with Cait DesRoches, who was recently named the Principal Investigator for the Society of Participatory Medicine's signature project, CHAMP, the Collaborative Healthcare Action Measurement Platform. Cait, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your current work?
Sure. So my name is Cait DesRoches. I'm a researcher and a faculty member at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston. I lead the OpenNotes initiative, which is a group of clinicians, researchers, patients, care partners, all focused on the idea of how can we use transparency, particularly information transparency for patients, to improve care. So that work involves a lot of pilot studies to see, what's the best way to do this? How do we know that it's working? What is important for patients? What's important for clinicians as we move through this new world where patients have access to their health information at their fingertips?
It's a fantastic initiative and it's starting to grow, so I'm loving to see that. What has your work on OpenNotes taught you about the value of participatory medicine?
So transparency, I think, is a foundational piece of participatory medicine. If clinicians and patients are not on the same page, if they're not working off the same set of information, then there'll always be a power differential between the patients and the clinicians. So if I go to the doctor and I don't understand because it hasn't been shared with me, I don't know what that doctor is thinking or what they are planning for my care, then I literally can't participate in it. So transparency and information is, I think, one of the important foundations. And then from there, we need to create an environment in which patients and families are empowered to take that information and really engage with it and really use it to participate with the clinicians in understanding their own care, understanding their own health, and making decisions together about what needs to happen.
Absolutely. As you get started working on the CHAMP project, it's a measurement platform. So why do you think we need to measure the participatoriness that we see out there in the world?
That's a great question. So in the world of healthcare, we measure everything. We measure how many people got their screenings. We measure how many people were readmitted to the hospital. All of those things are measured because we want to improve them. Either the healthcare system is getting an incentive to hit a target or a disincentive not to hit a target. But without measurement, we don't know where we are, and then we can't work to improve it. So it's key to have a valid way to say to an organization, hey, here's where you are at your baseline. Here are strategies to help you improve. And here's where we are going to come back and measure again next year and see how you're doing. Organizations and patients a way to see, am I making progress? Without that measurement, we just have no idea.
So that's great explanation of what we're trying to measure and sort of why. But what are you hoping that by actually establishing this, we will achieve? Like big picture.
Yeah, when we take the time to carefully design a tool to measure something, it means that thing is important. And so by making the thing important, it becomes a story that can start to spread. The measurement is not the goal. The measurement is to have organizations say, I want to get an A on that thing, or to have patients say, I want to improve my own readiness to participate. So putting a number on something, giving something a score just helps to impart the idea that you ought to be paying attention to this.
Yeah, I'm like obsessed with my sleep scores now.
That's right. Yeah.
And
Why
it's just a number.
our phones tell us how many steps we're taking. because
Exactly.
we want to know how are we doing, and without a number, without some kind of a measurement, it's hard to know on a population level how we're doing.
So that introduces another question. So what are some of the benefits that collecting and disseminating this data will have? And it's the data about the actions that patients and their providers take to work as a team. What are the benefits we hope to see as they change their behaviors?
We know from a lot of research that patients who are more engaged in their care do better. They have better outcomes. But we also know that engagement is challenging for patients. The environment doesn't, we know the environment does not encourage it. It is rare for a healthcare organization, and not because they're run by terrible people, but just this is a business. Healthcare is a business. So it's rare to have an organization really prioritize creating the conditions that allow for a participatory relationship between a patient and a clinician. But we know that engaged patients do better. So we want to help to create those environments. So I would expect to see in a really participatory environment that patients are doing better. They feel more in control of their care. They feel more ready to engage in shared decision making. They understand what they're supposed to do next, and not only what they're supposed to do next, but how they're supposed to do it with supports in place to help them do it. Those are the things that I would expect to see. And I know that the industry is interested in hard clinical outcomes like blood pressures under better control, or hemoglobin A1C scores are better. But what I expect to see first is a cultural shift. And that cultural shift is to me, just as important as those hard outcomes, which I think we could get to. But first, I would expect to see just an environment that encourages participation.
So that's the good side, the benefits. What are the big challenges to developing an instrument like we envision in CHAMP?
Survey work is tricky. How you ask questions, the order in which the questions are asked, all of those things make a difference in the answers that you get. So the first challenge is just making sure that we do a really thorough job in understanding how our primary targets for the survey. So right now that's patients. So that we make sure we understand how patients talk about and conceive of the idea of participatory medicine. If we get that wrong, then it's very easy to create a survey that doesn't actually measure the thing that we want to measure. So that's our first challenge, is how do people talk about this? Do they understand the questions that we're asking in the way that we understand them? Often there's a disconnect between how a researcher or a group that lives and breathes this stuff understands something, and how someone who is new to the idea, or frankly has never even thought of it, how they understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be really careful to make sure that what we're doing really reflects the thing we want to capture.
Yeah, there's a wide range of people that we're reaching out to here. And the differences in how they see this are based on what they've experienced and lots of other factors as well.
Yeah.
So what are the steps over the next 6 to 12 months we're going to need to take to move this project forward?
Sure. So first, we're going to start with some in-depth interviews that we'll do with community members and stakeholders to understand what they think about this. Even things like, how do they talk about it? What words do they use? So we'll do that. From there, we'll start to draft a draft survey. That'll go through a lot of revision with the Society for Participatory Medicine, with the research subgroups. There'll be a lot of revision that will go on. Then we will do a process called cognitive testing, and there you recruit people to take the survey, and then you ask them to think aloud as they're taking it. So there you're surfacing misunderstandings, or where the researcher, got something wrong. and your respondents think about something in a completely different way, or your survey question doesn't make sense, or it's impossible to answer. And you do a bunch of those interviews, and then you revise and you do more of those interviews. At some point, we'll also have to ask our human subjects committee to review our project and make sure that we're, adhering to the sound principles of human subjects research. Then when we finally get through all of that, we'll pre-test it. So we'll make sure that it works. Surveys often have branching logic or skip logic, where if you answer a question a certain way, then you go to one set of questions. If you answer it the other way, you go to another set of questions. So we will be hammering the survey with as many people as we can get to practice with it and make sure that everything is working. Once everything is working, then and only then will we go to actually fielding it with real live people who have never heard of the idea of participatory medicine. And we'll go out into the world and we'll field the survey. And then once we've finished that piece, we'll do a lot of analysis to make sure that our questions really measure what we think they're measuring, that they hang together in the way that we think that they should, that we can feel confident in the results. And then it's ready to go out into the world. So that whole process will take about 6 to 12 months to get that done.
So that's a ton of work. How are you feeling about getting started on that big project? Because I know we're excited.
I'm excited. I mean, cut my research teeth on survey development. So I love surveys. I love doing this kind of work. To me, it kind of scratches the itch of both like serious, like attention to detail, but also really getting to understand how people think about things. And so both of those things I just love doing. I love doing survey work. So I'm very excited to get started.
So let me give you your own open mic here. Is there something I didn't ask you about that you want to make sure everybody knows?
The one thing I would want to be sure that everyone knows is that this idea of measuring participatory medicine is really new. I'm the director of OpenNotes now, but when OpenNotes first started, I was not the director. I was in another research group across town and watching what they were doing and thinking, they are nuts. There is no way this is ever going to happen. They're never going to get clinicians to share their notes with patients. It went from that idea people thought was crazy to now it's just the way things are done. It's a federal regulation. I think I think that the idea of participatory medicine is in that stage of like, we have to explain what it is. How is this just different from patient engagement or shared decision making? Like, how is it different? We're at that early stage, and that kind of work is very exciting. So I'm just thrilled to get started.
I love the way you framed that. It's like something crazy happened and we're going to step into the crazy path again and see if we can make something new happen. So I just want to thank you very much for taking your time this morning and for joining the cause here and signing up. We're really looking forward to it.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to getting started.